Several years ago, the vegan diet really took off. Suddenly, every food manufacturer was clamoring to get on the bandwagon. Then came the gluten-free products. And while everyone was attempting a low-fat vegetarian diet, somehow fat became your friend. And then came the ketogenic diet. Well, one thing all of these later fads had in common was a reduction in carbohydrates. But what about a starch-based diet? That one seems counterintuitive, yet Dr. John McDougall has been using a starch-based diet to change people's lives for the better since the 1970s. So how does he do it? What makes it make sense? And why is it better for you than anything else out there? Our guest today is Dr. John McDougall, and he's about to give you a health awakening. While so many others are claiming that carbohydrates are your enemy, one man has been quietly and confidently changing lives with a starch-based diet for around 40 years. Okay, well, we have got to talk about this one. Dr. John McDougall, it is an honor to welcome you to the Health Awakening, sir.
Well, thank you very much. I've just become aware of your organization. I understand you're biblically oriented, which is my past comes from.
All right, well, let me ask you this. I mean, you've got a starch-based diet, which I'm sure everyone is very curious about. So we have all these diets out there. Everyone else is killing carbs. You're suggesting a starch-based diet, and a lot of people would argue with that. Tell me why it makes sense.
Because it's the diet for human beings. It's just like there's a diet for cats, and that's meat. And there's a diet for frogs. I think that's flies. I mean, there's a diet for each and every animal. Now, the human being can survive on a lot of things. It can survive on licorice candy bars. It can survive on soda pop. It can survive on even meat, even chicken. You know, it can survive on a lot of things. But the question is that every Christian and everyone else should answer is, what is the diet to keep my temple at its best? Because that's what I'm asked to do. What is the diet for a human being? What is the diet for myself, my spouse, my children? What is the correct diet? And nobody knows. Well, no, some people know, but not what you hear out there in the media. You would think anybody knew. You think you could eat anything, from lollipops to pure meat to just dairy to celery. You think you'd eat anything. Well, that's not true. The human being is a survivor. I mean, I have tested the human being. I'm 71 years old, and I've tested it to see if it will survive. It'll survive on 2 packs of cigarettes a day. It'll survive on 1 bottle of whiskey a day, or maybe half a bottle. It'll survive on hot dogs wrapped in bacon. Yeah, it will. The human being is amazing. But unfortunately, it breaks down. And most of your church members are broken down. Most of them. I haven't even seen them. But 80% of them are overweight. 39% of them are obese. About half frank. Well, no, I have pre-diabetes. About half pre-diabetes. And about 15% have frank diabetes where they're taking pills and shots. They feel bad. They can't poop. They're constipated. They can't work well. They smell bad. They're sick. And the reason they're sick is because they're living on a diet designed for another animal, or a diet you wouldn't feed your pets. You wouldn't feed your pets ice cream and cake and cupcakes. You wouldn't feed that to your pet. Somebody put you in jail or in the Humane Society. They'd lock you up. But yet you're allowed to feed your children food intended for baby cows, and food that tigers would eat, and lions would eat, and vultures would eat. And you let them do that. You don't let them do it just plain. Oh no, you can't get them to eat plain chicken. Oh no, not even boiled chicken. You can't get them to eat chicken with feathers on it. You can't get them to eat chicken without the feathers. You can't eat chicken if you boiled it. You can't get them to eat chicken. They won't eat chicken because they don't like chicken, because chicken's not their food. What do you have to do to get them to eat chicken? You have to cover it with barbecue sauce or sweet and sour sauce so that they can get it down, because it's not their food. The food of the human being is starch. It always has been. Oh, listen to my words. I mean, listen to them carefully. all large, successful populations of people throughout all of human verifiable history have obtained the bulk of their calories from starch. Consider the Mayans and the Aztecs. They're known as the people of the corn. Yeah, they lived for 1,300 years on corn. Fought battles, did athletic events, raised children, bear children on corn. That was their diet. How about the Incas? A little further south, in the Andes. They lived on a diet of potatoes. There are some times when they lived on freeze-dried potatoes all year long because food was in such short supply. They would take the potatoes that they grow in the summer and the fall, and they would freeze them at night up in the mountains, and then they would dry them during the day. And they'd have freeze-dried potatoes that they put in a dry place, and it would keep them alive for 10 years. Go to Asia. When I say Asia, when I say China, the Philippines, Japan, when I mention those countries, what do you think in terms of food?
You think of rice.
Of course. Before 1980, 90% of their diet was white rice in China.
But a lot of people bring up the fact, well, so they say it's a fact now, that rice and potatoes convert to sugar and there's a big insulin response. What do you say to that?
There are a lot of low-carb liars out there. You know, there are people, and unfortunately the population lets them get away with it. There are people who are semi-educated that lie. The truth is that carbohydrate is very difficult to turn into fat for a human being. We don't do it very efficiently at all. What we do is we wear fat. So the fat we eat, I want you to remember this. I want you to just a minute, take off your glasses so you can close your eyes and think about this. I want you to think about this. The fat I eat is the fat I wear. Okay? And then you know about obesity. The fat goes from the fork to the spoon right down to your butt or your thighs or your abdomen. It just gets transferred. It's just an efficient process that the body does. The body does not convert carbohydrate into fat with any efficiency. That's the big lie. What these low-carb diets do, the Atkins diet, that are basically brie, butter, and meat, that's the Atkins diet. By the way, Atkins was obese and sick from cardiovascular disease. And he died a little younger than I am. Hey, I got him beat there. I knew Atkins I was on the USDA 2000 panel with him with about another 50 doctors. So I've known him for a long time. I've had him on my radio show. What he does is he makes people sick. When you feed people a diet without carbohydrate, with just meat and dairy, what happens is they go into ketosis, which is a state of sickness. It's a way we protect ourselves during starvation and illness, is we go into ketosis. Well, ketosis is a condition where the appetite is suppressed, and so you lose weight. So people go on an all-meat diet, take the carbohydrates out. What happens is they lose water first, often up to 10 pounds of water because of the diuretic effect of the protein. And then they go into ketosis, and they're so sick they can't eat. And this may go on for a month or 6 months or so on. And they finally give up. They say, I cannot take this anymore. And then they go back onto usually a regular diet and gain the weight. But once people learn the truth, the diet that all large populations of people have consumed throughout all of verifiable human history, a diet based on rice or corn like the American Indian or the people in Central America.
Now, even though, let me ask you something else about those. So now, for thousands of years, these people have survived on this, and now we have a primarily raw, whole food, plant-based diet. Now, the starch-based diet, is that the same or is it different than that?
Well, the diet I serve is not raw. People are not raw food eaters. When they try and do it, they usually are uncomfortable and hungry.
Now, what do we say about, now why isn't a plant-based diet not enough? I mean, it's credited with...
It has to be cooked starch. You can live on potatoes and water alone. This has been done for thousands of years and been reported in the scientific journals. People who have decided, who've had weight or health problems, and they've decided that they just couldn't figure it out, so they're going to live on white potatoes and water. Go to a website called SpudFit. There's a guy who lost 120 pounds in a year, didn't suffer at all, loved his food, solved a lot of psychiatric problems too. It got control, SpudFit, SpudFit. There are many other scientific journal articles published from the 20s and 30s and 40s of people who have been raised only on potatoes for like 6 months or a year and a half. There have been war situations, like in Poland between 18 and 1900 and Russia, where they only had potatoes. That's all they had. Or in Germany after World War II. That's all they had was potatoes and water. So you can live on simple as potatoes and water and in great health. You get all the protein, vitamins, minerals, etc.
So why do you think we forget about this in this day and age? What has made us forget about the simplicity of this?
Why does this happen? Why does this happen? Why is it all big? It's a big mystery. It's a conspiracy. I bet it's a conspiracy. No, it's called money. Okay, it's called money. All money drives this direction of eating. The medical business drives it. The pharmaceutical business drives it. The food business drives it. The restaurant business, everything drives you to eat rich food. Okay, it's just money. I mean, how could you sell a population of people a diet for potatoes? Go into Costco sometime. Go into Costco and go down their potato aisle. You'll find 20 pounds of potatoes for $10. Or you'll go to the rice aisle and you'll find white rice, 50 pounds for like $24. You can feed a whole family on, $20, $30 worth of starch for a month. Just take a second. Mary and I were, my wife, my best friend, were at Costco recently, and there was a family of 4 in front of us, a man and wife, overweight, and 2 children, overweight. And they were buying the food. It was going past the cashier, and she finally said, stop. I can't afford it anymore. All I have is $300. Stop, put this food back. And I felt like going up to her, and I said to Mary that I was going to go up to her and tell her, come on back with me. I'll show you where the beans are and the rice and the corn. I think the family should be eating, which will cost you 1/3 as much money as you're spending now on this meat and so on. Mary wouldn't let me do it. But this poor family, these were Latino people. They were, kids were 30 pounds overweight. The parents were 50, 60 pounds overweight. It was because they bought into the American dream of eating like a king and a queen. And you look like a king and a queen when you eat like a king and a queen. A la Americans, a la Canadians, a la Europeans. This is not a big mystery.
So, Dr. McDougall, we talked a lot about rice, corn, and beans and such. A lot of people will say, well, that's boring, but your wife, Mary, has written a ton of great recipes using starches. So tell us about that.
Well, we have probably 700 free recipes on our website, which is drmcdougall.com. We have a McDougall app, which I think is one of the most popular cookbook apps. It's called the McDougall Cookbook app, which is about 1,000 recipes for, I think, $5 that people get. And then we have 13 national best-selling books. And of those 13, 11 have recipes in it. So we probably have 3,000 or 4,000 recipes. But our day, Mary's and my day, is very, very, very simple. We just finished a bowl of oatmeal. Big bowl of oatmeal. Yeah, we had a little brown sugar on it. But that's okay. No milk. Sometimes we have hash brown potatoes for breakfast. For lunch, we'll have maybe a Dr. McDougall soup. We have a company that sells soups all over the United States and Canada. It's called Dr. McDougall's Right Foods. They're in 6,000 stores. They're probably about 20 different products. So we may have a Dr. McDougall soup, or maybe Mary will put out something that we had left over from the night before, such as typical meals will be potatoes with a soup dish. And one of my favorite meals is mashed potatoes, corn, and peas with some gravy. I could go on and on, but we just have a few simple meals that we eat over and over again, a lot of repeats. I want to tell you about the results. They're published in the scientific literature. We have 7 papers published in peer-reviewed journals. And what the results are in 7 days is we get an average weight loss, eating as much as you want, 3.1 pounds. In 7 days, we get an average drop in cholesterol of 22 points. In 7 days, we get an average of a drop in blood sugar and a drop in blood pressure of 18 over 11 millimeters of mercury. And we get nearly 90% of people off all of their blood pressure and blood sugar medications. Now, this is based on 1,615 people from my clinic in Santa Rosa, California. You find it at drmcdougall.com. That's spelled drmcdougall.com. We also have a paper published there from OHSU, Portland's Medical School, where they studied our people for a year, 1 year. And what they found was 85% compliance rate for a year. Can you believe that? It says our diet is so simple. It is so tasty. It is so cost effective. It is so clean. It is so effective. 85%. It's published in the literature. You can read it. It's open access.
So, Dr. McDougall, let me ask you one question about that. Now, you mentioned the soups, and I remember finding one of your soups on the shelf. And I wanted to ask you about this because a lot of people, I'm sure, pick that up and they say, okay, well, you want to make it taste good. And to most people looking just at the sodium and not knowing much would say, the sodium looks kind of high on that. What would you say about that?
No salt, no sale.
But the sodium's okay, like you say, a little bit of sugar on your oatmeal is okay, so a little bit of salt is okay too?
Yeah, it works out really well for most people. We have taste buds for salt and sugar on our tongue, and it really makes the food go down better. I mean, that's the only way you can get the meat and the dairy to go down. You can't eat saltless cheese. It's unpalatable. So, yeah, we have a little salt, but it's not much. And we have a low-salt version. And plain and simple, we've been in business for over 15 years. And we've tried another company, the Pritikin program, without salt. And I think we were on the market shelves for 15 days. So, you know, you got to give people something they like, but something that does more good than harm. And these soups do. But there are lots of recipes you can make. As I say, you can live on mashed potatoes and gravy alone. And you'll be phenomenal. If you go to my website, www.drmcdougall.com, you'll see about 200 star McDougallers with problems like rheumatoid arthritis and obesity and diabetes and all kinds of things, multiple sclerosis, who have basically cured themselves. And then you'll find the scientific literature linked to that. So you'd see that other doctors know this. You say, well, why don't they use this? Why don't they use these treatments? Well, you know, statin drugs cost $1,000 a year, and MS drugs cost $75,000 a year. And the biggest buildings and the shiniest buildings in your town are hospitals and cancer centers and heart disease centers. You call that biblical? You call that Christian? Excuse me. I look at it from another point of view.
Dr. McDougall, you say that eating any other way than the biblical way is just not being a Christian, period. Please expand on that.
Well, I didn't exactly say that. I'm not going to judge your Christian morals. I'm going to judge your information database. I think you just don't know whether you're Christian or Jewish or whatever you are. People don't want to be sick. They don't want to see their children sick. They don't want to see their husband have a heart attack or their wife get breast cancer. They don't want that. They just don't know. And they're being lied to by industry. And it's not a conspiracy. It's just business. It's just trying to sell cheese and meat and other, rich foods. That's all it is. Don't take it personal. These farmers, these store retailers, they're just as fat and sick as everybody else. If it was a conspiracy, they'd hide the secret of starch to themselves and their family, and they'd just make you sick and then give you a nice path to the hospital. I guess they kind of do that, don't they?
All right. Thank you, Dr. McDougall. It has been an honor and a pleasure to have you. I wish we could have more time, but thank you for joining us today on The Health Awakening.
It was good. Thank you very much.